One cry of desperation. Humanity mobilized, and the galaxy trembled. In a vast expanse of space, where stars served as silent witnesses to the rise and fall of civilizations, humanity had finally reached beyond their cradle. Though they had touched the stars, they found themselves not as conquerors or equals, but as second-class citizens in a cosmic hierarchy dominated by the Cathar Empire. The scaled humanoids ruled the galactic concordat with technological superiority and a ruthless disdain for other species, particularly humans. Among the countless human colonies, Rhea Prime stood as a testament to their subjugation. Once a barren moon, it had been transformed into a lush agricultural world, producing exotic delicacies exclusively for Cathar aristocracy. Here, humans toiled as high-tech serfs, their engineering prowess limited by strict regulations, their dignity eroded by daily humiliations. Marcus Teller wiped sweat from his brow as he adjusted the atmospheric regulators in his family's bioengineered garden. 6 years of careful genetic modifications and meticulous cultivation had transformed this plot into one of Rhea Prime's most productive sectors. His 13-year-old daughter, Eliza, worked beside him, her small hands deftly pruning the luminescent fruit that would grace Cathar banquet tables. "Will they like this batch, father?" Eliza asked, holding up a particularly vibrant specimen. Marcus forced a smile. "They always do. Our cycloblossom fruits are the finest on Rhea." What he didn't say was that no Cathar would ever acknowledge the skill behind the cultivation, or that the luxury they consumed was the product of human ingenuity. To them, humans were merely tools, biological machines to be used and discarded. The distant hum of a Cathar shuttle broke through the artificial atmosphere, growing louder by the second. Marcus straightened up, recognizing the sound pattern of an official transport. Inspection day wasn't scheduled for another week. "Eliza, go find your mother," he said quietly. "Tell her we have visitors." The shuttle descended with imperial arrogance, its thrusters carelessly scorching nearby crops. Hatches opened to reveal Lord Kavex, a Cathar noble infamous for his capricious cruelty. His scales gleamed with oil, and jewels adorned the ridges of his forehead, symbols of high status. A contingent of guards flanked him, energy weapons displayed prominently. "Sector 7G, Kavex announced, his translator rendering his sibilant language into flat, emotionless standard. "I've heard reports of exceptional productivity." His cold, vertical-pupiled eyes surveyed the garden without a hint of appreciation. "Yes, my lord," Marcus replied, head lowered in the mandatory gesture of deference. "We've increased output by 27% this cycle." Kavex moved through the garden, casually plucking fruits and discarding them after a single bite. With each discarded treasure, Marcus felt his heart constrict. Months of work, treated as momentary amusement. "These specimens lack something," Kavex declared suddenly. "The flavor profile is uninspired. Predictable." Marcus bit his tongue. The cycloblossom fruits had been specifically engineered to Cathar taste preferences, following exact imperial guidelines. But contradiction was forbidden. Perhaps a complete restart would yield better results. Kavex continued, his tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. "Yes, I believe that's necessary." He made a casual gesture to his guards. "Clear this sector. Complete soil sterilization. We'll allocate new seed stock with better potential." Marcus stepped forward before he could stop himself. "My lord, please, this garden represents years of work. My family's livelihood depends on—" "Silence," Kavex cut him off. "Are you questioning an imperial directive?" "No, but we can modify the existing stock. I've developed techniques that could enhance the very qualities you're seeking. Just give us one more cycle, too." Kavex's scales flushed with the purple hue of anger. "This is the persistent problem with humans. You fail to understand your place." He turned to his captain. "Make an example." The guard raised his weapon. Marcus saw his wife Sophia emerge from their dwelling. Eliza clutched protectively against her. Their eyes met in a moment of perfect understanding. All their sacrifices, their silent resistance through excellence, their hope that compliance would ensure survival, all meaningless against Cthar caprice. The energy beam struck Marcus in the chest. There was no blood, only a momentary glow as his cells destabilized. He crumpled to the ground, his expression frozen in disbelief. Sophia didn't scream. The sound that escaped her wasn't the shriek of terror the Cthar might have expected. Instead, it was something deeper, more primal, a choked sob that seemed to emerge from humanity's collective soul. A sound of pure desperation, of absolute helplessness transmuted into something darker, something that resonated with centuries of oppression. What no one noticed was the small maintenance drone hovering near the garden's irrigation system. An outdated model, it had been modified by Marcus to assist with the garden's specialized needs. Its rudimentary AI automatically recorded the incident, the casual murder, the devastated garden, and most significantly, Sophia's soul-crushing cry. Kavex departed without another glance at the grieving family or the ruined garden, completely unaware that this single act of callous cruelty would ignite the flame that would eventually burn his empire to ashes. Hours later, across the moon's communication network, a file began to spread, first to neighboring sectors, then to transportation hubs, and finally to the secretive channels of WhisperNet, the clandestine communication system humans had painstakingly built beneath Cthar surveillance. The footage was brief: a proud garden, a dismissive lord, an execution, and that sound, Sophia's cry, a perfect distillation of human suffering under alien boots. On distant Earth, within the chambers of the Terran Federation Council, Administrator Leah Zhang stared at the projection with white-knuckled fists. The TFC was officially a representative body, permitted to manage human affairs under Cthar supervision. In reality, it was a puppet government, divided by colonial factions and powerless against imperial decisions. She looked around the chamber at her fellow council members. Colonial representatives from Mars, Europa, the Centauri worlds, usually engaged in petty squabbles over resource allocations and Cthar favor, sat in stunned silence as Sophia's cry echoed through the chamber. "This is happening every day," Zhang finally said, her voice cutting through the silence. "Not always recorded, not always so clear in its injustice. But this is our existence under the Concordat." Admiral James Henriksen, the figurehead military commander of Earth's Token Defense Force, spoke next. "What would you have us do? We have no weapons that can penetrate Cthar shields. Their fleets outnumber ours 50 to 1. "Perhaps," Zhang replied, "it's time we stop thinking about what we can't do and start focusing on what we can." She didn't need to elaborate. Everyone in that room knew about Project Chimera, the contingency plan deemed too dangerous to implement, the last resort strategy that would almost certainly lead to war. But as Sophia's desperate sob played once more, something shifted in the council chamber. Colonial rivalries suddenly seemed petty against the weight of that sound. The vote was unanimous for the first time in 70 years of Terran governance. Across the galaxy, on countless human worlds, the reaction to the Rhea Prime incident was spontaneous and visceral. Small acts of resistance multiplied, shipments delayed, equipment mysteriously malfunctioning, information becoming suddenly inaccessible. Nothing that could be definitively labeled as rebellion, but the message was clear to those who understood. Something had changed. In Cthar space, human servants moved more slowly. In mixed species trading posts, humans began subtly supporting each other against Cthar interests. On mining colonies and agricultural moons, productivity mysteriously declined despite increased supervision. The Cthar noticed these small acts of defiance, but dismissed them as temporary emotional reactions that would soon be suppressed by the cold reality of their dominance. They had no concept of how deeply that single cry had resonated, how it had awakened something long dormant in the human spirit. They would learn, but far too late. In the shadow of Neptune, hidden within its Trojan asteroids, lights began to flicker to life in abandoned mining facilities. Massive fabricators, ostensibly decommissioned decades ago, powered up silently. Project Chimera had begun. The Cthar Empire had ruled through technological superiority for centuries. Their energy weapons, shield technology, and faster-than-light capabilities far outstripped anything humans had been permitted to develop. But the Cthar had overlooked something fundamental about their subjugated species. Humans excelled at adaptation, at finding unconventional solutions, at turning disadvantages into weapons. For decades, human engineers have been designing theoretical countermeasures to Cthar technology, never implemented, but preserved in encrypted databases and passed between trusted colleagues. Now, those designs would move from theory to deadly reality. Commander Eva Rostova stood before the newly formed Terran Defense Council, her posture rigid despite her exhaustion. Once considered a military radical for advocating active defense measures against the Cthar, she had been sidelined to an administrative post on Titan. Now, she had been recalled to lead humanity's desperate gambit. The Chimera Protocol divides our response into 3 phases, she explained, gesturing to the holographic display. First, conversion of civilian infrastructure to military applications. Second, deployment of guerrilla tactics to disrupt Cthar supply lines and test their defensive capabilities. Third, formation of an actual fighting force capable of engaging Cthar fleets. Timeline, asked Zhang. For full implementation? 2 years minimum, Rostova answered truthfully. But we don't have 2 years. The Cthar will notice our preparations long before that. We need to buy time. Ow! Rostova's expression hardened. By making them bleed from 1,000 small cuts while we forge our sword. The Cthar ambassador to Earth, Lord SSVAC, addressed the Terran Federation Council with undisguised contempt. His scales shimmered with irritation as he responded to their formal diplomatic protest regarding the Rhea Prime incident. The execution was perfectly legal under Imperial law, he stated. The human questioned a direct order from a noble of the Third Circle. The punishment is clearly codified in the Concordat that your ancestors so eagerly signed. Zhang maintained a neutral expression despite her anger. We have requested that Lord Ka-Vex be recalled for consultation regarding his actions. SSVAC's laugh was a hissing sound that the translator didn't bother to soften. Recalled? For disciplining noisy insects? Your species' emotional instability continues to amuse the Imperial Court. Perhaps if you focused more on productivity and less on sentimentality, you might eventually earn greater privileges. He leaned forward, his reptilian face filling the projection. The Empire's patience has limits, Administrator Zhang. These small disruptions we've been witnessing, delayed shipments, production shortfalls, they have been noted. Continue this childish tantrum, and you may find our response educational. The transmission ended, and Zhang turned to her advisors. How much time have we bought? 2 months, maybe 3 before they send inspection teams to our key facilities, replied Security Director Okamura. Their arrogance works in our favor. They genuinely can't conceive of us as a threat. Then we use those months wisely, Zhang said. Accelerate Chimera. Prepare our people, and pray that we're not making the biggest mistake in human history. In remote asteroid bases and hidden lunar facilities, the conversion of mining equipment into weapons platforms proceeded around the clock. Cargo haulers designed to move, ores became the shells for combat vessels. Mass drivers meant for launching resource containers were reconfigured into rail guns capable of accelerating projectiles to velocities that could threaten even Cthar shields. Recruitment centers disguised as civil defense training programs processed thousands of volunteers daily. Among them was Jackson Wei, a cargo pilot whose parents had been relocated during the Cthar reorganization of the Centauri colonies, a euphemism for the forced labor camps from which few returned. You have exceptional simulator scores, noted the recruitment officer, reviewing his file. Fighter pilot training? Jax nodded. I've been running smuggling routes through the Perseus Arm for 3 years. Cthar patrols, asteroid fields, solar storms, I've outflown them all. Smuggling. The officer raised an eyebrow. That's a violation of Imperial regulations. Yes, Jax finished. Mainly medical supplies to colonies that the Cthar deemed economically non-viable. I'm not here because I'm a model citizen. I'm here because I want them gone. The officer studied him for a moment, then stamped his approval. Report to Luna Base tomorrow. And Jax, we're all criminals now. 3 months into the mobilization, the Kthar made their first punitive move. A small research outpost on Titan, officially dedicated to atmospheric studies, but secretly developing stealth technology for Terran ships, detected an incoming Kthar patrol. Evacuation order confirmed, reported the outpost commander. But we need 15 more minutes to wipe the databases. Rostova, monitoring from the secure command center beneath Olympus Mons on Mars, made a split-second decision. No evacuation. Prepare for defense. Commander, we have 36 personnel against a Kthar light cruiser. The outpost has minimal defenses. Exactly why they won't expect resistance, Rostova replied. Deploy the prototype shields and methane projectors. Let's see if our theories about Kthar targeting systems are correct. The Kthar ship approached with typical Imperial confidence, expecting the humans to surrender immediately. Instead, they were met with an engineered methane storm that obscured conventional sensors, followed by a barrage of short-range ballistic missiles. Primitive by Kthar standards, but launched with precision from hidden emplacements. The Kthar shields, calibrated to repel energy weapons, proved less effective against multiple. Kinetic impacts concentrated on a single section. The cruiser sustained damage and was forced to retreat, marking the first successful defense against a Kthar warship in human history. The victory, though small, rippled through human space. Whispers became conversations. Fear began to transform into hope. And in hidden corners of the galaxy, other oppressed species took note. On the watery world of Siluri's 4, the Psionic Silurian Council observed the growing human resistance with interest. Long subjugated by the Kthar due to their valuable mental abilities but limited technological development, the Silurians had adopted a strategy of passive non-cooperation for centuries. The humans fight back, noted Elder Thale, his telepathic voice resonating in the underwater chamber. They cannot win. Perhaps, replied Minter Vesf, her thought patterns tinged with curiosity. Yet they believe they can, which is fascinating. Their minds burn with certainty despite all evidence. They will be crushed, stated another elder. The Kthar will make examples of their worlds. Yes, Vesf agreed, unless they are not alone. Her suggestion sent ripples of shock through the telepathic network. We have knowledge the humans need. The neural patterns of Kthar command structures, the frequencies of their communication networks, the weaknesses in their psionic defenses. You propose an alliance? Madness. I propose survival, Vest countered. The Kthar have harvested our kind for centuries, using our children as navigation computers for their ships. If the humans fail, nothing changes. If they succeed, even partially, the Kthar may be weakened enough for us to break our own chains. After days of deliberation, a consensus was reached. A Silurian envoy, hidden aboard a trading vessel, departed for the Sol system with an unprecedented offer: information in exchange for protection. The Kthar response to the Titan defense was swift and devastating. Station Gateway, a civilian habitat in Earth orbit serving as a major transport hub, was subjected to an orbital bombardment that killed over 40,000 humans. The attack was broadcast across all frequencies, with Lord Admiral Kvarn personally delivering the Empire's message. Let this serve as a reminder of the natural order. Resistance is not merely futile. It is an offense against cosmic hierarchy. Return to your assigned functions, and this unfortunate incident will be the last. Continue this pointless rebellion, and we will not target military installations. We will simply sterilize human worlds until compliance is restored. In the TFC emergency chamber, Zhang watched the death toll rise with a grief that threatened to consume her. We've provoked a massacre, she whispered. No, Rostova corrected firmly. They have revealed their true nature for all to see. The Concordat was always a fiction. We were never protected, only temporarily useful. Reports streamed in from across human space. Instead of capitulation, the Kthar atrocity had ignited fury. Volunteer enlistments quadrupled overnight. Chimera facilities reported workers refusing to take breaks, laboring in shifts around the clock. Most surprisingly, diplomatic channels began to receive encrypted messages from non-human sources, the Silurians publicly and other species more cautiously. The Cthar had many enemies, it seemed, who had been waiting for someone to take the first stand. 6 months into the mobilization, humanity was ready to test its new capabilities in a direct engagement. Intelligence indicated that the Cthar were assembling a massive fleet to sweep through the Kepler belt, a resource-rich asteroid field where humans had established major mining operations and where Chimera had secretly constructed its largest shipyards. They're coming with overwhelming force, Rostova informed the War Council. 3 battle groups, centered around dreadnoughts. Their intention is clear, to crush our resource base and make an example of any resistance. Our status? Zhang asked. We have 200 converted Q ships hidden throughout the belt, 5,000 mines disguised as minor asteroids, and 3 squadrons of fighters led by Commander Wei. Jack's Wei, the smuggler. Rostova nodded. Now our best tactical pilot. His call sign is Ghost, appropriate given what we need him to do. The plan was audacious. Rather than evacuating the Kepler belt or attempting a conventional defense, Rostova proposed turning the entire region into a massive trap. Human knowledge of mining and asteroid composition would be their advantage. The Cthar rely on energy shields that are nearly impenetrable to conventional weapons, she explained. But they have to modulate those shields to allow their own weapons to fire, creating momentary weaknesses. We've mapped those modulation patterns. Their ship's greatest strength is coordination. They fight as a perfect unit, but that means they all follow the same tactical algorithms, making them predictable if you understand the pattern. The battle began predictably. The Cthar fleet entered the belt in perfect formation, their sensors sweeping for human vessels. Finding none immediately, they proceeded toward the largest mining stations, weapons charged. The first phase of Rostova's plan activated. Magnetic accelerators hidden within hollowed-out asteroids launched thousands of smaller rocks at precisely calculated trajectories. Not enough to damage the Cthar ships significantly, but sufficient to force constant shield adjustments. Swarm pattern initiated, reported Jax from his fighter, a converted atmospheric craft now equipped with short-range missiles. Go Squadron, on my mark. As the Cthar ships adjusted their shields to repel the asteroid fragments, small gaps appeared in their defensive coverage. Microseconds of vulnerability that would normally be impossible to exploit. But Jax and his pilots weren't aiming for the ships themselves. Their targets were the shield generators, specifically the external emission nodes that had to remain exposed for the shields to function. Execute, ordered Rostova. From hiding places throughout the belt, the Q ships emerged, cargo haulers retrofitted with weapons systems camouflaged as standard equipment. They launched a coordinated barrage, not to penetrate shields, but to force the Cthar vessels into predictable evasive patterns. Jax's fighters struck during that maneuver, their missiles hitting shield nodes with surgical precision. One by one, Cthar ships experienced shield fluctuations. Some recovered quickly, but others became vulnerable just long enough for the hidden mass drivers to launch kinetic penetrators at speeds that turned simple metal rods into devastating weapons. The Cthar commanders, shocked by the effectiveness of such primitive technology, attempted to regroup. Their tightly coordinated battle algorithms, designed to counter conventional threats, struggled to adapt to the chaotic human tactics. They're pulling back to defensive formation, Jax reported, his fighter barely evading enemy fire. Pattern Alpha is working. Begin Phase 2, Rostova ordered. The mines hidden throughout the belt activated, but rather than detonating, they began emitting radiation patterns that mimicked Cthar distress signals. The Imperial fleet's automated systems, detecting what appeared to be damaged friendly vessels, adjusted their targeting protocols to avoid firing on these signatures. This confusion provided the opening for the masterstroke, a coordinated electromagnetic pulse generated by synchronized explosions throughout the belt, temporarily disrupting Kthar communications. For precious minutes, their perfect coordination fractured. In those minutes, human vessels struck with everything they had. Q-ships rammed damaged Kthar cruisers. Fighters executed bombing runs on exposed infrastructure. Mining charges detonated along fault lines and asteroids, creating debris fields that shredded Kthar sensor arrays. By the time Imperial communications restored, nearly a third of their fleet was crippled or destroyed. The remainder, facing an enemy that refused to follow conventional combat logic, initiated a withdrawal, the first major Kthar retreat in centuries. As the last enemy ships jumped to faster than light, a stunned silence fell over the human command center, broken finally by Zhang's disbelieving voice. "We won. We survived," Rostova corrected. "And show them we can hurt them. That's enough for today." The victory at Kepler Belt changed everything. News spread rapidly through human space and beyond. Species that had been watching cautiously now approached openly. The Silurians formalized their alliance, offering their psionic abilities to disrupt Kthar command functions. The Signians, masters of stealth technology, emerged from their self-imposed isolation to provide cloaking systems that could evade Kthar sensors. Within weeks, the Terran Alliance was born. Not a new empire, but a coalition of the oppressed united by a common enemy. Representatives gathered on Earth, the symbolic homeworld of the Resistance, to coordinate strategy and share technologies. What humans lacked in advanced weapons, they made up for in tactical innovation and sheer determination. Most importantly, the Silurians provided critical intelligence about the heart of Kthar power, the massive space station known as the Citadel, orbiting their homeworld of Ctheria. More than a military installation, it was the embodiment of imperial authority, housing the sovereign council that directed all Kthar activities throughout the galaxy. "The Citadel is considered impregnable," explained Vesf, the Silurian representative. "Multiple shield layers, automated defense systems, and a permanent garrison of elite troops. But it has one critical vulnerability. The Silurians had discovered, through their psionic connections to captive members of their species forced to serve on Kthar ships, that the Citadel's command and control systems contained a fundamental encryption flaw, a backdoor left by its designers to ensure they could always retain access. A team of human hackers, working from a secret facility on Luna, spent weeks analyzing the code samples provided by the Silurians. "It's there," confirmed Security Director Okamura. "A subtle pattern in their quantum encryption that creates predictable outcomes under specific conditions. If we can trigger those conditions and transmit the right counter-sequence, we could temporarily disable their shields," Rostova finished. "How temporarily?" "Minutes at most. And we need to be very close to their command hub to transmit the signal." It wasn't much, but it was the only weakness they had found in the seemingly invulnerable heart of the Empire. From this slim possibility, Operation Black Dawn was born, the most audacious military plan in human history. The operation would require perfect coordination between all alliance forces. The bulk of their fleet would launch an all-out assault on the Citadel's outer defenses, not with any real hope of breaking through, but to focus Kthar attention outward. Meanwhile, a small team would infiltrate the Citadel using a captured and modified Kthar shuttle equipped with Signian stealth technology. Their mission: reach the central command node and transmit the hack that would temporarily disable the shields. The final component involved a critical power relay station that would be exposed when the shields dropped. Destroying it would trigger a cascade failure throughout the Citadel systems, effectively paralyzing the Kthar command structure. "This is a suicide mission," Zhang stated bluntly during the final briefing. "The infiltration team will almost certainly not survive. The fighter squadron targeting the relay will face concentrated fire. We're asking people to sacrifice themselves." With respect, Administrator Jax stepped forward. "We're all dead anyway if we don't try." The Kthar are mobilizing their main fleet. Our intelligence suggests they're preparing to sterilize Earth as an example to any who would resist. This isn't about winning anymore. It's about taking them down with us. Rostova surveyed the assembled commanders. Volunteers only for the infiltration team and the strike force. Anyone who wants no part in this has my permission to withdraw. No one moved. I'll lead the infiltration team, Rostova announced. Commander Wei will lead the strike force. We launch in 24 hours. The final preparations were conducted in grim silence. Across Alliance space, vessels moved into position. The Silurians gathered their most powerful psionics to create the mental interference that would be crucial to the plan's initial phases. Cygnian engineers made last-minute adjustments to the stealth systems. On the eve of the operation, Jax found Rostova in the observation deck of the command carrier, staring out at the assembled fleet, a patchwork armada of converted civilian ships, hastily constructed fighters, and the few actual warships contributed by their allies. "Quite a view," he commented, joining her at the viewport. "Not bad for a species that was making tools out of rocks a few millennia ago." Rostova smiled faintly. "My grandfather used to say that humans' greatest strength is our ability to look at impossible odds and say, 'Watch me.' Is that what we're doing? The impossible? We're certainly trying." She turned to face him. "Your squadron has the most critical role once the shields are down. That relay will only be exposed for minutes, maybe less." Jax nodded. "We'll get it done, one way or another. I know you will." She hesitated, then added, "If we somehow survive this, I'm recommending you for Admiralty. The Alliance will need leaders who understand that conventional thinking won't win unconventional wars. Let's focus on surviving tomorrow first," Jax replied with a crooked smile. "But for what it's worth, I'd follow you into hell, Commander." "That's exactly where we're going," Rostova said softly. "I just hope we can find our way back." The Battle of Ctheria began at dawn, standard Earth time, a symbolic choice that wasn't lost on the human forces. The main Alliance fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the outer perimeter of the Cthar home system, immediately launching fighters and commencing bombardment of the outer defense platforms. The Cthar response was swift and devastating. Dozens of warships moved to intercept, their superior firepower cutting through the lighter Alliance vessels. But the humans and their allies had expected this. Their tactics weren't aimed at victory in the conventional sense, but at creating confusion and divided attention. Ships attacked and retreated in seemingly random patterns. Electronic warfare systems broadcast contradictory signals. The Silurians, linked in a massive psionic network, projected false impressions and scrambled communications, causing Cthar commanders to see threats where none existed. Amid this chaos, a single shuttle, the infiltration craft carrying Rostova and her team, slipped through the defensive cordon, its Cygnian stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to Cthar's sensors. They approached the Citadel from its maintenance sector, where service vessels regularly docked to perform repairs on the station's external systems. "Docking procedure initiated," reported the pilot, a Cygnian whose translucent skin rippled with tension. "We're registering as a routine maintenance craft. So far, they're accepting our credentials." Rostova checked her weapon, a modified pulse rifle designed to overcome Cthar personal shields. "Remember, everyone, once we're inside, we have 20 minutes to reach the command node. After that, the battle outside will have progressed to the point where they'll lock down all internal systems." The shuttle docked successfully, connecting to a service airlock rarely used by anyone except maintenance drones. Using Silurian intelligence, they navigated through maintenance tunnels and secondary corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares where Cthar troops would be rushing to battle stations. Outside, the battle intensified. The Alliance fleet, despite heavy losses, maintained their chaotic assault pattern, preventing the Cthar from establishing a coherent defense. Jax led his Go squadron through a series of hit-and-run attacks on communications arrays, further disrupting Imperial coordination. Approaching the command sector, Rostova whispered as her team reached a security checkpoint. Beyond it lay the central hub of the Citadel and their target. The checkpoint was manned by 4 Cthar warriors, their attention focused on the battle rather than potential intruders. Rostova signaled her team, and they struck simultaneously, taking down the guards before they could sound an alarm. 12 minutes remaining, she noted, checking the time. Okamura, start the hack. The security director connected their custom device to the Kthar network terminal, initiating the complex sequence that would exploit the encryption flaw. Uploading now. 3 minutes to completion. That's when the alarm sounded, not for them, but throughout the Citadel. On the monitors, they could see that the Kthar had detected an anomaly in their network. They've identified the intrusion, Okamura reported. They're initiating countermeasures. I can complete the upload, but they'll know exactly where we are. Do it, Rostova ordered. We'll hold them off. The team took defensive positions as the first Kthar security forces arrived, drawn by the network alert. The firefight was brutal and one-sided. Despite their modified weapons, the humans were outmatched by Kthar combat technology. One by one, Rostova's team fell, buying precious seconds for the upload to complete. A blast caught her in the side, searing through her armor and into her flesh. She collapsed behind a console, watching as Okamura, the last one standing, fought to protect the device. Upload at 90%, he called out, returning fire with his failing weapon. Just a few more. A concentrated burst cut him down mid-sentence. Rostova, bleeding heavily, dragged herself toward the device. Through blurring vision, she saw the upload counter, 98%, 99%. With her last strength, she pressed the transmit button just as Kthar forces surrounded her. Throughout the Citadel, lights flickered. The massive energy shields that had protected the station for centuries wavered and then collapsed completely. Emergency systems activated, but the command confusion caused by the simultaneous Silurian psionic attack prevented immediate restoration. In space, Jax received the confirmation signal. Shields down. Go squadron, this is our one shot. Follow me in. His fighters broke from the main battle, accelerating toward the now vulnerable Citadel. Kthar point defense systems tracked them, filling space with energy beams that picked off the human craft one by one. Stay on target, Jax ordered as another fighter disintegrated beside him. The relay station is on the lower hemisphere, that structure with the radiation signature. His squadron dwindled as they approached, shot down by increasingly desperate Kthar defenses. Inside the Citadel, emergency protocols activated a final safeguard, a bioweapon designed to eliminate all non-Kthar life forms within the station, ensuring no infiltrators would survive even if the structure itself was compromised. Jax's fighter, damaged by multiple hits, struggled to maintain course. His targeting computer locked onto the power relay, a critical node that, according to Silurian intelligence, would trigger a cascade failure throughout the Citadel if destroyed. 2 fighters left, reported his. Wingman, heavy fire incoming. A direct hit obliterated the wingman's craft. Jax, now alone and with failing systems, made his decision. His fighter was crippled beyond recovery, but it could still fly one final trajectory. Ghost leader to Alliance Command, he transmitted. Shield still down. No clear shot at the target. I'm going to ram it. He disabled the safety protocols and pushed his engines beyond their limits, accelerating directly toward the exposed relay. Kthar defense fire intensified, ripping chunks from his fighter but failing to stop its momentum. In his final seconds, Jax thought of Earth, not as it was under Kthar rule, but as it could be. Free, independent, proud. The impact was cataclysmic. His fighters' remaining fuel and munitions detonated on contact with the relay, triggering the predicted cascade failure. Throughout the Citadel, systems overloaded. The Central Command Hub, where the Sovereign Council had been coordinating the defense, went dark. Across Kthar space, the effect was immediate and devastating. Without the Central Command protocols emanating from the Citadel, the perfectly coordinated Kthar fleet fell into disarray. Ships stopped receiving tactical updates. Commanders, accustomed to executing orders rather than making independent decisions, hesitated. In this moment of unprecedented confusion, the Alliance fleet, though badly damaged, pressed their advantage. Kthar vessels, suddenly operating as individuals rather than parts of a collective whole, began to retreat or surrender. Some, crewed by lower caste Cthar who had long resented the rigid hierarchy, even turned on their own command ships. The news of the Citadel's fall spread across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. On occupied worlds, the reaction was immediate. Subjugated species, sensing the collapse of imperial authority, rose up against their oppressors. Cthar administrators, suddenly cut off from the chain of command, found themselves surrounded by populations they had terrorized for generations. On Ctheria itself, the stability of centuries shattered overnight. With the Sovereign Council presumed dead, various noble houses quickly mobilized to fill the power vacuum. Ancient rivalries, long suppressed by imperial unity, erupted into open conflict. The homeworld descended into civil war as competing factions vied for control of what remained of the empire. The Galactic Concordat, that instrument of oppression disguised as cooperation, was officially dissolved 3 days after the Battle of Ctheria. Its collapse left dozens of sectors without governing authority or protection from pirates and opportunists who quickly moved to exploit the chaos. In the aftermath, Administrator Zhang convened an emergency session of the Alliance leadership. The mood was somber despite their victory. Nearly 60% of their fleet had been destroyed or disabled. Thousands of lives had been lost, including all members of Rostova's infiltration team and most of Ghost Squadron. "We've won our freedom," Zhang announced to the gathered representatives, "but at a terrible cost. And now we face perhaps an even greater challenge, helping to rebuild a galaxy that has known only Cthar rule for centuries." Reports streamed in from across former Imperial space. Worlds descending into anarchy, refugee crises as displaced Cthar fled retribution, power struggles between opportunistic warlords seeking to establish new fiefdoms on the ruins of the old order. "We cannot become the new Cthar," warned Vesf, the Silurian elder. "Yet neither can we stand aside and allow chaos to reign. Too many will suffer." The solution emerged gradually. The Galactic Compact, a loose confederation of sovereign worlds united by mutual defense agreements and shared principles rather than imperial decree. Unlike the Concordat, membership would be voluntary, and all species would have equal representation regardless of technological development or military strength. In the 2 years that followed, the Terran Alliance found itself reluctantly assuming the role of peacekeeper throughout former Cthar space. Human ships, once hidden and disguised, now openly patrolled trade routes, protecting merchant vessels from raiders. Alliance diplomats mediated disputes between former subject worlds, now struggling to establish their own identities. On Rhea Prime, where it had all begun, Sophia Teller stood in the rebuilt garden alongside Eliza, now 15 and bearing the serious expression of someone who had witnessed too much too young. Together, they watched as workers erected a memorial, a simple stone obelisk inscribed with Marcus's name alongside those of all who had fallen in what was now called the Liberation War. "Would Father be proud?" Eliza asked, her hand tightening around her mother's. Sophia nodded. "Not of the war or the killing, but of what's growing from it all. People working together, building something new." Commander Eva. Rostova's name headed the list of honor on Earth's War Memorial, a massive structure of black granite erected in what had once been the Cthar Administrative Complex. Beside her name were those of her infiltration team, and below them, Jack's Way and his Ghost Squadron pilots. The annual day of the Rhea Cry became the most solemn observance across human space and among their allies. At the exact recorded time of Sophia's desperate sob, all activities stopped for a minute of absolute silence, a reminder of how quickly oppression could turn to resistance and how high the cost of freedom had been. In the new Terran Alliance headquarters, built from the remains of the old TFC building, Admiral Henriksen, promoted after the war, met with Zhang to discuss the emerging challenges of peace. "The Cthar remnant factions are still fighting among themselves," he reported, "but intelligence suggests several houses are attempting to consolidate power. They may eventually pose a threat again." "Then we remain vigilant," Zhang replied. "But we also remember what we fought for, not dominance, but dignity. The moment we forget, that distinction is the moment we become what we destroyed. On distant worlds, where new civilizations were taking their first steps into space, they found not Cthar warships demanding subjugation, but Alliance vessels offering assistance and trade. The galaxy was healing, however slowly and imperfectly. Perhaps the most profound change was in humanity itself. No longer second-class citizens or survival-focused refugees, humans had earned a reputation as fierce fighters but surprisingly benevolent victors. Their colonies, once hidden or disguised, now flourished openly. Their innovations, previously suppressed by Cthar restrictions, blossomed into new technologies that benefited all Alliance species. 5 years after the Liberation War, at a ceremony marking the formation of the new Galactic Senate, the political arm of the Compact, Zhang, now serving as Earth's first senator, reflected on the journey. We came to the stars as explorers, became slaves, then soldiers, and now find ourselves reluctant leaders, she told the assembled representatives of 100 worlds. Each role has taught us something essential about who we are and what we might become. She gestured to the memorial flame burning at the center of the chamber. This flame commemorates all who died for freedom, not just in our war, but in countless struggles across countless worlds throughout history. It reminds us that liberty, once lit, can never be fully extinguished. The final exhibit in the War Museum on Earth was not a weapon or a battle map, but a simple audio recording, Sophia's cry from Rhea Prime, preserved exactly as it had been captured by the maintenance drone. Visitors would stand in silence as it played, experiencing the raw emotion that had catalyzed a revolution. Beside the listening station was a single inscription, written in all the languages of the Alliance. And the galaxy learned to respect the fire.